president who will work as hard as you do, who will get results the way you do every day, and who will always have your back. And for me, and it's not just because I'm here, I say this all over, it starts with having a strong and vibrant labor movement that is supported in the White House and across the country. You see, I think it's pretty clear. Unions helped build the greatest middle class in the history of the world, here in Pennsylvania and across the United States. When unions are strong, wages go up for both union and non-union families. The middle class expands, and the entire economy is more dynamic for everyone. Now, the reverse is also true. When unions are weak and workers lose their voice and their bargaining power, incomes stagnate, inequality grows, and families suffer. So we together have to stand up to those forces trying to weaken the labor movement and tell them, not on our watch. We are going to stand firm together in favor of what unions have done, are doing, and will do. Now, this is important on another front. Today, America's unions are at the forefront of so many crucial progressive movements, including the fight to raise the minimum wage. And this is an exciting moment. The victories are starting to roll in. Millions of working families in New York and California are poised to climb out of poverty. And I fully support Governor Wolf in his fight to raise the minimum wage in Pennsylvania as well. This is what a movement looks like. And Americans owe a debt of gratitude to the fast food workers and the retail workers and in New York airport workers and others who marched in the street, to the rank and file laborers from the public and private sector, to everyone from home care workers to child care workers who are standing up and saying, we have to do better. This kind of grassroots mobilization is essential. Now, the Republican frontrunner, in case you haven't heard, actually says wages are too high. Yeah, I said the other day in New York, it's time he gets out of one of those towers named for himself and start talking to folks who are like working for a living all over, right? But he's not alone. Republican governors and legislatures are waging a relentless assault on workers' rights. Ted Cruz and other Republicans are pushing a national right-to-work law that would gut unions, drive down wages and benefits, and concentrate even more power in the hands of corporations and their allies. Right to work is wrong for workers and wrong for America. So here's my promise to you. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected president, organized labor will always have a champion in the White House and a seat at the table. And you don't have to take my word for it. Look at my record. As Rick said, 100%. As a senator, I was an original co-sponsor of the Employee Free Choice Act. And as president, I will use the bully pulpit and the Department of Labor to stand with you to defend worker bargaining power and help unions grow. Because if we want better jobs and wages, we need stronger unions. Now let me walk through some of the other fights we have to wage and win to make sure the good jobs of the future end up here in Pennsylvania and across America. First, we need to drive a manufacturing renaissance in this country and make major new investments in infrastructure, small business, and clean energy. Someone's going to be the clean energy superpower of the 21st century. It's either going to be China, Germany, or us. I want it to be us. With your help, it will be us. Under my infrastructure plan, we'll put millions of Americans to work, modernizing our roads, our bridges, our railways, our ports, our airports, our water systems, our sewer systems, our pipelines, and a lot of them will be really good union jobs because we're going to give the building trades the chance to help us rebuild America for the 21st century. We'll finish the job of connecting all of America's homes to high-speed internet. And when I mention the water system, you've all heard about Flint, Michigan, right? It's not the only place. There are lots of places in the Northeast and the Midwest where the water is not as safe as it could be and where we lose a lot of water, one of our most precious resources, because of leaks. So we're going to get to work together, and we can rebuild our country. And these are jobs that can't be outsourced. These are jobs that have to be done right here. You know, I never gave up on manufacturing when I was a senator from New York. Communities like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, across our state, I reached across the aisle to found the Bipartisan Manufacturing Caucus. Just last week, I was in Syracuse and called for a new $10 billion effort to bring together workers, unions, businesses, universities, and governments at every level to create new manufacturing jobs across America. It will go hand in hand with a new manufacturing renaissance tax credit that I'm proposing to encourage investments in communities that have been hit hard by layoffs and plant closings. And I know there are a lot of those here in Pennsylvania. American workers don't quit, and we can't quit on our workers. We have to lift up manufacturing again so people can loudly and proudly say, yes, we can make it in America. So I will work on this every day as your president. Second, it's time for more businesses to start treating workers as assets to be invested in, not costs to be cut. And that is why I've proposed specific new incentives for companies to share profits with employees on top of good wages. Because when corporations do well, all the benefits shouldn't go just to the CEOs and the shareholders. The workers who actually produce those profits ought to be rewarded as well. And we are going to force companies that ship jobs overseas to give back any tax breaks that they receive from local, county, state, or federal government. And if corporations do try to move their headquarters to a foreign country to skip out on their tax bills, we're going to slap a new exit tax on them. And we're going to put that money to work in the communities left behind. I'm really proud that the Treasury Secretary and the President yesterday announced tough new rules on this gimmick that companies are using. You know, they call it an inversion. I call it a perversion. It's wrong. It's got to stop. What President Obama announced is a good start, and I'm glad that Pfizer has decided to give up on its own inversion scheme. But we got to build on this progress, and we really have to slam the door on these abuses. They're wrong for American workers, but they're also wrong for the American economy. And some of you may have just heard about these disclosures about outrageous tax havens and loopholes that super rich people across the world are exploiting in Panama and elsewhere. Now, some of this behavior is clearly against the law, and everyone who violates the law anywhere should be held accountable. But it's also scandalous how much is actually legal. That's why last year I proposed a plan to shut down the so-called private tax system for the mega wealthy. We're going after all these scams and make sure that everyone pays their fair share here in America. I'm going to hold them accountable, and we're going to have a special effort to track all these resources wherever they might lead. Now, third, we need smarter, fairer trade policies. And there's been a lot of distortions about my record on trade. You'll probably hear it during the next couple of weeks. So I want to set things straight and ask you to tell your friends. My message to every worker in Pennsylvania, every worker across America is this: I will stand with you, I will have your back, and I will stop dead in its tracks any trade deal that hurts America. Again, don't just take what I'm saying. Look at the record. I opposed the only multilateral trade deal that came up when I was in the Senate. It was called CAFTA.